episode of Trust and Safety Talks by Social and Media Matters. Today we are joined by Anne Collier, a writer and a youth advocate. She's also the founder and executive director of the Net Safety Collaborative, an organization that aims to improve young people's safety and well-being online. Welcome, Anne, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Pratishta. It's great to be with you.
Thank you. So, to talk about trust and safety talks, we have initiated this conversation with like-minded experts who are working in this domain for a very long time, and to understand that how more we can contribute from the Indian perspective, learning from the global experts. And to just add on, we recently launched a report on misinformation and fake news. With the first-time voters, we did a research pan-India, and we got some insights, we got learnings from there on how the youth wants to shape the online spaces and what is that they're basically want to contribute. So to begin with, I want to understand from your journey in trust and safety and the incredible work that you're doing in making online spaces more safe. So if you can share a bit more about your work with us.
Well, sure. As you said, I'm a writer and youth advocate and have been working in this space for more than 20 years. I really started writing about youth and digital media in the late 90s. So that really dates me. So I have a lot of interest in how policy develops around this, and both policy in the household as well as in the community and in governments. And I'm really concerned that sometimes it's mostly about control and surveillance, monitoring, parental control tools, and that kind of eclipses their rights of participation and voice. And as you put it, Pratishta, that young people really care deeply about what's happening in society. Many of them are activists. They want to engage civically. And so we really need to give them the tools to do that intelligently, effectively, and safely. So that's really what I do and what I've been following for a very long time.
And that's wonderful. And our work in India with youth is also contributes on the similar lines to understand
I know.
what is that they are advocating for change in the online domains. So
Yeah.
our groundwork primarily also contributes in that space. So as you are a member of many advisory boards and also nonprofit organizations that work on digital safety, that works on youth advocacy in the online spaces, especially for youth well-being. So how do you balance the interest of youth safety with the goals and challenges faced by these tech giants?
Well, I think the balance is in trying to understand how policy is made in corporations and working as much as possible with people in trust and safety. I served on Twitter's Trust and Safety Council when it was Twitter. Now it's X, and I think things have gone downhill there. But we heard last week on Capitol Hill in a congressional hearing that very few young people, I guess only 3%, something like that, of Twitter is under 18, which sort of saves them in a way, but that's still a lot of young people when you look at the overall user base. I work with YouTube and Meta and also Teleperformance, which has, many more employees around the world than any of the platforms. Teleperformance is all about trust and safety work, content moderation work. And I think they have something like 50,000 employees just in Mumbai. So they too are working really hard in the area of trust and safety, and trying to strike that balance is really important.
So one of the challenges, major challenges, is that we observe that. So what do you see as the most pressing challenge in combating cyberbullying, and how can communities address them effectively?
That cyberbullying is not unique to to their lives that it is a subset of bullying, and it's what we do in their home and school contexts to encourage them to engage in civil behavior and take care of one another. And if they observe antisocial or socially cruel behavior, that they speak up and support their peers, either publicly or privately, if they're more comfortable with that. Those are the things that help everybody deal with this kind of abuse of power, which is what bullying really is, whether it's in digital spaces or offline spaces.
And certainly, this is about youth, and we need to have those equitable balances. So how can we also involve parents and educators to foster these skills to ensure that there are more online spaces are more safer?
Well, these are really social skills, right? Here in America, we teach in some schools, I wish in all schools, we teach social emotional learning. And they're social skills. They're good decision making about how to function in social spaces, online and offline. It's about, you know, recognizing antisocial behavior, not engaging in it, and learning how to understand sort of the emotional element of it for everybody. There's a distinct set of 5 competencies involved. And I think this plays out in any space where human beings operate, including younger human beings.
Certainly, and that also puts me under the umbrella of digital citizenship, that we need to have
Right.
more maybe literacy programs, curriculums that can be effectively implemented at the educational institution level, especially that these education institutions can adopt these curriculums to be practiced and to be executed in schools and colleges. That will also give a sense of the social skills that teenagers, young children need to adopt. So, what do you feel that, when we talk about adopting digital citizenship, how can cross-cultural collaborations and knowledge sharing contribute to make more effective trust and safety measures worldwide? How that we can bring it from the Indian lens as well?
Well, cross-cultural intelligence is important in your country and in my country, as well as across borders, right? There are multiple cultures in many countries like yours and mine, and that is a part of social emotional learning, cultural intelligence. And I think what we found in the research, gosh, in the last decade, is that there are really 3 literacies needed now in today's very social digital media environment. And those are media literacy, which is decades old, has a long evidence base, media literacy, social literacy, or social emotional learning, as we discussed, and digital literacy, which is really learning how to use the tools, including internet search, effectively, how to use generative AI effectively and safely. And I would, love to talk about this latest technology confronting us, if you'd be interested, because I had a lot of questions from you all about that I'd be happy to talk about.
Certainly, if you can more elaborate more upon that, because generative AI is more and much into discussion now, and people are also want to be aware about, what is this concept of generative AI? How is basically artificial intelligence shaping our own minds, technology, devices that are there when we talk about AI mediated world? So, please feel free to share more about it.
Yeah, well, you just kind of answered my question because I wondered how much it comes up in India. It certainly comes up a lot here now, and probably there as well. You see it, at the top of Bing and Bard. You see generative AI at the top of internet search, and that's something that we need to think long and hard about. First of all, I think it's really important to acknowledge that it's not all negative. You know, we hear so much in the news about deep fakes, I think in both our countries, certainly, you know, what Taylor Swift had to deal with in our country recently around non-consensual deep fakes. And, you know, and that they certainly appeared in multiple countries. Mostly, I think it started in 4chan and spilled out into X Twitter. So, but it's not all negative, and there are so many things that generative AI is doing and can do in the future. So I think it's important to first start with that. But do people wonder what it is? Should we define it or talk about what it can do?
Certainly,
Okay, well, it's a new form of artificial intelligence that can create all forms of media. You probably know that, right? Text, images, speech, software code, and it does that when humans prompt it or ask it to do things, right? So people may have heard of the term large language model. Well, LLMs like ChatGPT and Bard are what do the work of GAI, and they're trained on tons of data. To give you a feel for how much, for example, ChatGPT-3 is made up of, and ChatGPT-3 is so last year, right? It's an old model, you know, in generative AI terms, it's ancient history, but it was 60% of all the data collected from all websites over a 10-year period, 2011 to 2021. And 22% of its data is collected from websites that are linked on Reddit and have 3 upvotes. 16% are books, all books available on the open web. So that's history books, textbooks, novels, all kinds of books, all the works of Machiavelli, for example, right? That's available on the open web. And then 3% is Wikipedia. So that is a ton of data that went into the training of that model. And, you know, now we have ChatGPT 4, ChatGPT 4.5. We have Google Gemini, which informs Bard, and Bing. Microsoft Search is actually GTP4, I believe. So, you know, we're seeing it now, and it's free to most people. So people need to know how to deal with it, I think. And the most important protection right now is media literacy education.
no,
So,
certainly, and you know, media literacy is something that is very much needed. Uh, uh, I don't know, people are conscious of the fact that how generative AI is going to shape the world now. When artificial intelligence back like 2 years ago, when it was being into discussion, and generative AI came into discussion much earlier, as it was
yeah.
anticipated even, because we were still talking about online safety, the harms, the tools, the techniques, the measures, uh, but then there was a whole pop-up of artificial intelligence, and then followed by generative AI. We feel that, you know, technology is just advancing very, very exponentially,
Yeah.
as we could
Yeah.
even imagine. And
Yeah.
you have been working in this domain for over 20 years now. So I can just reflect back of, you know, how you would have seen the change in the technological advancement, and from the dial-up connections to Wi-Fi to all the Gen AI world. What do you think that, you know, people as users, when artificial intelligence is taking over human intelligence, what do you feel that people should take as safety measures today? Because deepfake, now US and India will go for their elections as well, and this will just change the perceptions of even users, how internet is shaping. What measures the users should take in as precautionary measures, so that they can be thoughtful of what they're seeing and what they're communicating through the online channels as well?
Well, I think we need to be skeptical of what we see. Europol, the law enforcement agency, the multi-country law enforcement agency in Europe, has been quoted as saying that by 2026, in 2 years, 90% of what we see on the web will be generated by artificial intelligence. So, I mean, take that with a grain of salt, because law enforcement has a track record of appealing to people's fears, right? But if you cut that even in half or a third, and if you know, as we all need to know, that large language models make stuff up, right? That we cannot rely on the information that it puts out. So, and I think it's probably getting better and better, but even if, you know, a fifth or 5%, right, of the information that you see, you know, in search results is inaccurate, you can't trust it. So we have to know that, and we have to know that whether it's images or text or somebody's speech, whether it's a chat bot that has become kind of a friend to a child, that skepticism is very, very healthy. So that would be measure number one. And then if we can teach children the skills of recognizing what is and isn't true, I'm not worried about, you know, some of the, you know, existential crisis conspiracy theories that we see out there. What I'm concerned about is the misinformation that we're exposed to increasingly online, and that is intentional and unintentional, right? So how do we get our news? We're going to have to, you know, we see that children are, you know, getting the news from influencers and TikTok and YouTube and Instagram more and more. And so we need to talk with them about being skeptical, about understanding the difference between fact and opinion, and about confirmation bias, right? And how our brains go to the negative, and our brains tend to also want to confirm our biases. So we need to teach children what bias is and how models are trained on biased information, right? If you train a model partly on what's going on in Reddit, it is going to have bias, whether it's gender bias or it's racism or, you know, any form of bias, it's going to be in there. So that's the kind of approach that we need to take to what we see online more and more.
Certainly, and with biasness, the ideologies can be more biased in those terms when
Yeah.
we are trying to make more safer internet. And today being a safer internet day, we are talking about internet safety for youth and for other users as well. That's so great. Didn't
Yeah.
realize, but yes, it's a big day for all of us. What do you recommend that, you know, how can we have more discussions in India about it? Because India is a space where avenues are opening up about trust and safety. There are more organizations that they are talking about trust and safety. So, what are your thoughts? What is your guidance? What are those hooks that you can give it to us that
Mhm.
we kind of have more visionary conversations about trust and safety in India?
Well, I think number one, don't give in to alarmism or fear mongering. And that's another good place to apply skepticism or critical thinking, right? Because fear sends us into the lizard part of our brains, right? Our amygdalas, which are all about fighting, fleeing or freezing. And we don't accomplish anything that way. We just freeze. So it's really important to keep the discussion going and meet people where they are. If people are concerned, not generating fear, but if they are genuinely concerned about something, meet them right there. And ideally with social and emotional skills, right? With cultural intelligence. And then, learn, for us adults, it really helps to understand how the tools work. You know that very well. You teach that. with your organization. And I think it's not just teaching children, it's not just top down, right? It's learning together because, you know, as you said, Pratishta, it's all changing so fast. We're truly back in move fast and break things mode, right? With tech companies moving so fast, along with investors, right? Without regulation in our country, that the onus is left to us, and we're going to have to educate each other and our children, right? And ask our children to teach us how they use the tools, you know, ideally with open hearts and minds, so that they don't feel judged and they don't shut down because they're afraid of our reactions.
Certainly, and with that, I just want to ask last two questions. How do you think that these big tech companies need to adhere to more trust and safety matters? Because youth, underage children are now creating accounts, creating, in fact, fake profiles now. How is that we can tap on that, right? Talking about youth safety, talking about elderly safety. Also, now the cyber threats are just increasing. How is that these big tech companies need to have more vigilant, they need to be more vigilant about the accounts that are being created on their platform and how their platforms are being used by other users. So what is that you want to give as an advice for these big tech companies to adhere as measures?
Well, they're actually creating a lot of tools. They are responding to regulatory pressure around the world and increasing in our states at the state level in our country, and actually more and more pressure at the federal level. So they're responding with new features and tools, parental controls that parents can choose to use. They're doing some defaults or, you know, opt-outs for kids that are important, I think. And they're trying to foster parent-child communication. So there are some things they're doing. I'd say keep the pressure on, you know, and keep supporting intelligent legislation, right? Not reflexive techno-solutionism, right? That believes that the whole problem is on platforms or online, rather than a kind of hybrid, right? The solution is a hybrid. It's national policy, household policy, school policy, and corporate policy, right? So it really is an ecosystem that we need to keep healthy.
True. That is a very, very, very valuable point that we need to keep the ecosystem in a way that, you know, everybody feels that kind of a safety online. With
And
that,
that they have a responsibility as well, right? Yeah.
true, true, true. That actually adds on to the responsibility on the shoulders of the user and also the regulators as well. That how we need to create more impactful platforms for and decisions as well. Taking that responsibility, taking that onus on us of bridging that gap. With
Yeah,
that,
there
what is
is more to do. There is definitely more they can do, always.
certainly, and as we all work, I think so more and more conversations will evolve. We'll have more inputs based on our experiences as well. And this is how this ecosystem will keep continue to work. We will give inputs to the big tech companies from based on our experiences, and they will be implementing partners. So we need to keep regulating that ecosystem, yes,
Yeah.
for sure. So what is your last message, somebody who's been working on trust and safety as well, giving advices? What is your last message as a professional to the trust and safety world?
Well, the trust and safety world needs a lot of support right now. There are incredible layoffs, tens of thousands this year, well over 100,000 last year. And so we need to be mindful about the importance of responsible tech thinkers and doers and workers. Besides that, I think it's just how to teach each other the best ways to keep different vulnerable and protected classes safe, right? Women, children, disabled people, everybody needs unique support. And we have to do that. We can't rely on the companies to do that entirely because they have a massive scale issue. Facebook alone has 3 billion users. And even whether it's human trust and safety work or algorithmic trust and safety work, it's never enough.
True, true, true. That is why I said that, we need to bridge that
Yeah.
whole dialogue, and we need to keep that ecosystem as well alive with us and them being on board together. So we cannot leave anybody apart. So that was from my side, and it was great chatting with you, and always lovely having such conversations, healthy conversations with you, talking and learning more from you as well. That what is going on, what is that we can learn from you, what is that can be implemented, and this was fantastic. This was incredible.
Yeah, thank you, Pratishtha. I learned so much from you all and what's happening in India, and I have so much more to learn about that. So thank you very much.